Hey everyone, welcome, and I hope you are having a great, fantastic start of 2023. Happy New Year from everyone here at 21Co. We are back with the first episode and the perfect guest to have with us as the first episode of the new year. Today we are joined by Ahmed Ismail, the CEO and president of Fluid, a liquidity aggregator that uses AI quant-based models to tackle fragmented liquidity in virtual asset markets. Before we get started talking about all this interesting stuff, we have to do the usual disclaimer. Anything said by either myself or Ahmed does not constitute financial advice. Please, everyone, do your own research. But as usual, we're going to talk about Ahmed's background because he has a very cool background. And I really appreciate the time he's taken today in between all the things going on. So Ahmed, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how you got into the crypto space.
Great, sure. I'm Ahmed. I used to be a banker for around 15 years. And then I got into crypto in 2017. I founded the first fully regulated OTC and custody platform called Haven. It was regulated in Abu Dhabi. That started off as a small PowerPoint presentation, and now it's a very big company. And then last year, I founded Fluid, early last year, so 2021. And Fluid is a liquidity aggregator. One of the biggest problems in crypto, as we see, is that liquidity is highly fragmented. Markets are fairly liquid, and crypto markets are about 20 years behind the equities or FX markets. So what we're trying to do at Fluid is create a liquidity aggregator. So think of us as an exchange of exchanges that brings liquidity all together and gives traders, other exchanges, retail traders, professional traders, trading houses, arb traders, all sorts of traders, best execution, meaning best possible price. And my background is that I was the CEO of Jefferies for Middle East Africa for around 4 years before getting into crypto. I was also at Credit Suisse, and I was also at Merrill Lynch between London and the Middle East.
Very interesting. I'm going to ask, because we do have quite a few traditional bankers or finance people, what made you make that jump? Like you said, Haven was your first sort of crypto step. Like what made you start Haven?
I think it was about 2014, 2015 that I was midway through my tenure at Jefferies. I just saw that the whole industry is in structural decline. I saw that this thing called crypto started becoming cool. I saw the TC ticker on CNBC and CNN. I didn't see any institutional participation in this market. And I have a strong kind of being a CEO of a branch of a bank. You have a very strong regulatory training and background. And I saw that all the companies that were getting into crypto were still pretty much cowboys. They had this really cool technology that could change the world. They had no financial or regulatory or compliance background whatsoever. And this is where I saw a huge alleyway and opening in the market to try to enable institutional participation in crypto. And you used to get big OTC deals happening. If you remember the sort of 2016, 2017, a lot of people were trying to do these big OTC deals. But the reason they never happened was that there was no platform that was trusted or compliant to do so. And that's what kind of, I saw the light then, and I thought, this is a huge opportunity that no one is filling. So I got in with a buddy of mine from back in my banking days. We raised a little bit of cash, not a huge amount, but we raised enough to get it off the ground. And now Haven is the largest OTC and custody platform out of the Middle East. I'm the second largest shareholder there, board member, also the founder. But one of the problems also that came from that is when we were doing these big OTC deals, we saw that there's a huge amount of slippage in the market, meaning that you're trying to sell or buy a huge amount of cryptocurrency, even a small order of a couple of $1 million moves the needle on the market. And this is where it doesn't do that in equities or in FX, but it's somehow, or commodities, it somehow does that in crypto. And the reason is because liquidity is highly fragmented. It's held in very few places, and exchanges, there's a lack of interoperability between all the different exchanges and the trading venues. And that traders don't get the best deal. They get smoked most of the time. And this is what brought me to Fluid. And then the journey with Fluid started then when I saw that there is a huge opportunity here to help solve this problem and become a liquidity aggregator. And much like in the world of retail in flights, when you buy a flight, a lot of people use Expedia or Skyscanner. these aggregators brought a huge amount of quote unquote liquidity to the travel market, and customers and vendors together in the travel market. And we can do the same to the crypto market. We use AI to try to solve this problem. Now, AI solves the problem in that crypto markets are very illiquid, as we said, and the venues don't talk to each other, meaning that if you're trying to put an order, there's a lack of interoperability, and meaning that there is a huge amount of latency, right? When you're trying to place an order, a buy or a sell on any market. And this latency adds what's called gap risk, meaning that if you're, say, you're a broker, right? And you're trying to buy on behalf of a client $1 million worth of BTC. Now, that BTC on Binance, I'm describing a use case here. So you see a BTC on Binance for $100, right? By the time, and BTC is highly volatile, and by the time you send that order into Binance, you send a single, and that order comes back as a confirmed order, you've lost about a second. At that time, that price could have gone up. By the time you've given it to your client, that price could have gone up to 102. And so basically, you've sold or you've bought at 100. You promised a price of 100 when it's actually slightly higher, when it's 102. And who carries that risk? And that's the age-old question. The client has, and he's going to be pretty pissed off with you if he said, you promised me a price of 100 and now it's 102. Where's the 2 gone? And the issue here is latency, right? And so using AI, we cut through that latency because we predict prices up to 30 seconds ahead of time, meaning that when you put your order, our engines will give you and your client a real-time price at all times. So we cut through the latency, meaning that if you're going to buy at 100 and it says 100, you're going to be damn sure that you bought at 100. You don't have to worry about latency. Now, this is a problem that was solved. So we use deep learning, machine learning, and very sophisticated models. We have a team of around 15 postdoc researchers and professors who are working full-time to put together hybrid models that use different techniques within AI to predict the behavior of crypto markets. And that is the secret sauce of what we do, that AI engine. Now, we use all sorts, so we don't just use, usually when people try to do that, and this is a technique that a lot of quant shops use, they use statistical analysis, quant-based methods. We go 3-4 levels deeper than just statistical analysis. We use that as one feature. So you may have heard of like MACD and Bollinger Lines and all of this kind of stuff, candlestick and technical analysis. All of this stuff, right, is one feature. We also look at things like, we use something called sentiment analysis. So in our AI model, we plug in to Twitter, to Discord, and we have that as an input into our models. Now, why do we do that? Crypto markets are highly nonlinear, highly complex, right? The problem with statistical analysis is that they are linear. It's one input in, one input out, right? And it works about 60% of the time within a certain bandwidth. If it breaks that band, then you got to start again with something else, with another theory, right? Now, there are deeper, more complex underlying currents that affect cryptocurrency markets. And they could be sentiment. So we talked about Twitter sentiment, we talked about Discord sentiment. They could also be to do with gold prices, equity prices, CPI indices, news headlines. All of these things, all of this unstructured data you throw, and there is a hidden pattern somewhere that you or I as humans can't see, but AI models with rigorous learning, analysis, and training can actually start to learn. Now, we don't predict models more than 30 seconds ahead of time. We probably can, but with a lower accuracy. But our window is simply just a few seconds ahead. And we can do this with a very high accuracy of 99.95% accuracy.
Wow, that is very accurate.
Now, we don't trade on this data. Now, this is where the whole FTX thing comes in. We simply use this as a tool to give you best, or give traders and users our announcement best execution. Now, the reason we don't do that is that it's very complex, and then you end up being the guy called SPF, and it throws a lot of complex problems that we don't want to get into, and it's highly illegal in traditional markets and trad. So we don't do it because it's highly illegal. So we use our models simply for best execution.
Okay. I have, oh God, you answered so much already in the intro. That's so cool. You made this much easier for me. I guess the most exciting thing is like, I read all of this stuff on the website, but it's always great hearing it from the actual CEO, which makes it more like impactful. So people are listening to this, oh my God, this sounds amazing. They're like, okay, I've got to check out Fluid. What's like a step-by-step process for them to get involved with the community, try out the platform, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So our platform, our liquidity aggregator, is about to go live. So we're in between MVP and alpha stage. We hope to be live in the next month or 2 months, and we've already started test trading and everything. Now, in terms of getting involved in the community, we have a very active Telegram group. I think about 8,000 members there, and they're all real people. They're not like bots. So we have a very deep reach, very active community. It's a very gamified to keep people engaged. We have a very active Twitter chat as well to give people news or an insight of what's going on.
Okay. So for people who don't know, right, if you're listening to this as a podcast or you're watching the video, all the links that Ahmed just mentioned, the Twitter, the YouTube, will be down in the show notes. So Ahmed, 2022, as we were talking before the show, has been a pretty terrible year for crypto. Coming from traditional finance, do you regret making your way into Fluid, into Haven, like getting into crypto, given the last year that we've had? Do you see a road to recovery for crypto?
Absolutely, yeah. No. I think these capitulations that have happened, and there are two major events, crypto markets are still nascent. Bitcoin has been around just over 11 years, right? 10, 11 years, that kind of time frame. I think that we're still at a very early stage, and it's a very exciting place to be. If you look at crypto, is not going away because of what happened. Quite the contrary. What we've done is that we're learning very important lessons that we need to learn, and hard truth, the industry and changes that need to happen for it to thrive. So I think those are very important lessons. Now, there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to go under, and we've seen very big behemoths or companies that grew very quickly and then went down very quickly. And they did so because they couldn't survive the winter. Now, for companies like us, thankfully, we have enough funding to keep going for the next few years. We're also we're very well capitalized. Also, our business model is addressed. I mean, the problem that's happened right now has almost made our lives easier, because what it's done is that it's made the problem bigger. Crypto markets are even more fragmented, and what we are is a piece of infrastructure. And if anything, what's happened has created more demand for what we bring to the table. So I'm very excited about, from a selfish perspective, I'm very excited about the year and 2-3 years ahead.
Before the podcast, I spoke to some of our community. I'm like, hey, Ahmed Ismail is coming on the show. Check out Fluid. And I know one of the most common questions we got was, like, as someone who's really, really busy, right? Because you're between the UK and Dubai and you're doing quite a few things, right? Like the technology that you've created around Fluid, aggregating liquidity, like the AI quant models, why not just license it? Say, hey, Binance, hey, Crypto.com, why don't you guys can take this technology and just pay me a fee? Why build Fluid into what it is?
Yeah, we are in discussions with various strategic investors, potential strategic investors, and I wouldn't ever discount someone coming in. But the whole point of this as well is we're trying to create something that no one exchange has a monopoly over. If an exchange has a monopoly over it, this thing won't work, because you're not really solving any problem. So yeah, we do need to have more participation, and it'll be great to have more participation from to come in and help us. But it's a good idea, but obviously there is a slight conflict of interest as well at the same time.
Okay. And beyond aggregating liquidity, what else is something that Fluid does that people might not be aware of?
Aggregating liquidity, that's a big enough problem as it is. It's a $1 trillion problem. We recognize that to be very good at what we do, we have to do one thing very well. You can't do 6 or 7 different things, right? So what we do is we have a product suite around the whole liquidity aggregation. So even if you look on our website, you'll see that we have a portal for retail, we have a portal for institutions, we have a portal for exchanges. So different ways you can trade via API or you can trade via. That's one thing that we do. The second thing is that we have these execution algorithms. So for instance, you could be either side of the trade. For instance, you can use so say you have a big order and you want to spray it across 10, 12 different venues. Then what you do is that you use Fluid's execution algorithm, which aren't available anywhere. Like no one in the industry, not even the big sort of crypto behemoths. So we have stuff like that, but it's all based around aggregating liquidity.
Okay, very cool. Ahmed, I was wondering, like you mentioned, the MVP is coming out in 2 months or so.
Yeah, no, the MVP is already out. So the MVP is ready. So the product is done. What we're doing right now is that we're creating more like a user interface at the moment and adding in a few extra features such as smart order routers so that it's usable for institutional investors and institutional participants.
Okay. Do you imagine this sort of, like you said, once it's like fully released, do you imagine this being an institutional product or a retail product or a mix of both?
Amazing question. So very good. We see, I think at the moment if you look at crypto participation, and I'm sorry, pre-FTX, pre-Luna, it was around retail, or 95% retail, 5% institution. I think initially what we want to have in terms of our go-to-market strategy is the B2B2C model, meaning that we are going to start having our first sort of few clients, which will bring a lot of flow to our platform, will be institutional. However, towards the end of 2023, we're going to be releasing Fluid X, which is our retail platform.
Very cool.
So we'll have 3 buckets, if you like, of user types. First bucket is institutional, the big trading houses. Second one is other exchanges. So if you think of tier 3, tier 4 exchanges, you rely on the liquidity from 1 or 2 exchanges. They'll use Fluid as an aggregator to reach the liquidity from 100, 150 other venues, all in one place, giving them best execution and thickening their order book. Okay, nice. We have bots in place to stop what's called shadow liquidity. So give yourself as an aggregator, you're aggregating liquidity that isn't there. So you get these double counting, if you like. We have bots that stop that. So what you're really getting, and we have things like risk scoring, etc., all the different exchanges and venues that come into play. We're able to completely eliminate that and really give best execution. So as I said, 3 buckets: institutional, exchanges, and retail.
Okay. For like I know you have a Fluid token. Are you going to have a Fluid token at some point?
Yes, we are. The whole point is that we have a token. So the token is basically think of it similar in terms of utility to BNB. So usage of the token will give you discounts, and also using the platform adds more buy pressure to the token. So the more you use the token, the more you use the platform, you're able to stake those tokens and get more APY. So think of it as similar to BNB.
Okay. And you mentioned BNB, so does that mean, are you running on Binance Smart Chain, or what networks are you running on?
No, at the moment we're ERC20 token. And we're looking to get a layer 2 as well.
Okay. Yes, that is one of the things I saw. Like you did mention layer 2, and you don't have to mention anything. Are there any layer 2s that are top of mind? I know layer 2s are a big thing going into this year.
We like Polygon a lot. We like, Binance Smart Chain. We like Solana. We have a partnership with Polygon. We're building at the moment on Polygon.
Okay.
So that will be the next phase of what we're doing.
Okay. Very nice. Let's take a step out of Fluid for a moment. I had a chance to dive into your Twitter, and one of the things I remember you posted was about decentralization and convincing people to self-custody. Do you think that's still going to be possible given everything that's happened this past 12 months?
I think with custody is a very, very deep question. And the whole thing about custody is this idea of not your keys, not your crypto. So self-custody is a very interesting question. I think what we need to think about with self-custody is the definition of custody. What is the definition of custody? When you put your money in a bank, you actually give the custody over to the bank. Crypto is just as in if you have control of a wallet, that crypto is you. The wallet never has a name to it. It never has KYC to it, like a bank account does. But cash, and physical cash in crypto, work in very similar ways in terms of. So for custody has different issues with different subsets of users. So if you're looking at institutions who manage other people's money, have a limit as to how much they can actually custody and hold. If you're a custodian, and that's why they have custodians. Now, custodians are trusted third parties that are fully regulated, insured, risk mitigated, such that if you're JP Morgan and you're trading shares of Apple, you don't actually hold the shares at JP Morgan in a drawer. The shares, the title deeds are held with a custodian. So Bank of 𝕋𝕚𝕐 holds the title to the shares. And basically, they put that liability onto the custodian and they pay them a fee for that. They say, you're holding my shares. I trust you. You're insured, right? And I'm going to pay you 7, 10, a few bips every year on the nominal amount that I hold with you. And that's to cover things like insurance, etc. And in the crypto industry, the problem that we've always had up until recently is that custodians, or so-called custodians, aren't properly regulated. There are less than a handful of true crypto virtual asset regulators that fully protect and regulate or have exacting regulation for custodians. Virtual asset regulation is very different from regulation in the equity space or regulation in the commodity, in traditional markets or in the security space. We have to think about things like insurance, operating these procedures that are very different to how you handle and move crypto around. Who has control? Who has access to the wallets? Are they out of the wallets, MPC wallets? What type of security regulation and security governance is applied to these wallets, for instance? All of this stuff is dictated by a regulator. So the regulator would order audits to this company and say, every month you have to give us an audit report, not just the whole sort of proof of reserve stuff that finance is talking about, but a true regulator would be asking internal controls, how the internal controls, have there been any, every year you have to have an internal audit, right? And if you think of that level of scrutiny, if you look at FTX, none of that happened in FTX. It was all just, one guy with a company in the Bahamas running like a real Ponzi scheme.
Okay, very good point. I don't want to keep you for too long. You mentioned regulation, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask at the beginning was, given your experience from traditional finance, and we've had after FTX people like, we need regulation, we need regulation. You're currently in the UK, you spent some time in Dubai as well. What do you see for crypto regulation in 2020?
I see that there's going to be a lot more scrutiny. I think the problem that we've had over the last 2 years is that the crypto industry grew way faster than regulators were able to keep up. And regulators weren't able to keep a tab or enforce or understand how the market worked. Now, I see this year as a year of consolidation and crypto regulation becoming more like regulators basically stepping up a little bit more, coming up to speed of what DeFi is, how DeFi works, how exchanges work. All of this, I think, that's what we're aiming for this year. Is it a case of more companies getting regulated? Probably not. I think a lot of companies need to get regulated, but I do think that the regulators really need to step up, and they will. They have to. They've got no choice. This is going to be the year of reconciliation.
Very good. I like that as a final statement, the year of reconciliation. Ahmed, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I want to bring things back to Fluid, right? You've talked a lot about Fluid, a lot of cool things, so many things that, and I want to stop talking about it because it is exciting. I want to give this as a last chance to, if you want to mention anything else about Fluid, anything exciting people can look forward to in 2023. You've mentioned a few things. If there's anything else you want to end off today's show on.
Yeah, absolutely. We've basically spent, since the 𝕋𝕚𝕐 event, if you like, we have really doubled down on our dev work and product development. We've made a lot of exciting hires in the company who are world-class people with 15, 20 years experience in creating liquidity aggregators across everything. Right, so they're very good people, and I'm very proud of my team. So you're going to see a lot of updates on our product, and you're going to see us grow very quickly this year. This is our year. We're very excited about what's at stake here, and yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to be keeping an eye out, and hopefully we can have you on towards the end of 2023. You can say, hey, Corinne, this has been an awesome year. It's totally worked amazingly. That is the news I'll keep my fingers crossed for. Ahmed, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for making time, despite your busy schedule, and hopefully we can catch up at the end of the year.
Thank you, Krian. Really appreciate it.
No problem.